Hello, everyone. Thank you guys for watching. This is Skyfall Blind Dreamer. I am in my hotel room now. It is currently 10:51 p.m., 22:51 hours, United States, Arizona time, UTC -7. But we do not observe daylight savings time in Arizona, so that would make us UTC -8. Here we are in Arizona. And this is technically the second day of the International Dream Conference, the 39th Annual International Dream Conference. Yesterday was registration. However, we did have our first keynote by Dr. Edward Bruce Bynum. If you want to learn more about the International Dream Conference, the program and schedule is available on the website. For those who do want access to that, I can add that link to the program on request to the description if you want to get an idea of the kind of events that they have here. So on request, I can add that in to some of my videos about the conference. So basically, I have had a very action-packed day. I had a few goals coming into this conference. Goals are to raise awareness about lucid dreaming research among people with sensory disabilities, such as myself, to learn as much as I could about lucid dreaming from professionals, from people who actually research it, learn if what I'm teaching people is accurate, learn what other people's experiences are, and if I could possibly improve what I am learning and what I am teaching to others. Also, to gauge what sort of knowledge there is about us in terms of the Discord communities that we have. Do people actually know about us? Is there anyone in the actual academic side or the research side of lucid dreaming that actually knows about us? And then, meeting lucid dreamers outside of Discord, outside of our very narrow sample sizes of teenagers, meeting adult lucid dreamers, actually figuring out people like, if they communicate or if they are involved in networks or any form of forums or communications outside of what we generally do here. And also, networking with researchers. I just want to get to know people. I want to network with other lucid dreamers, with people who research lucid dreaming. I want to display my passion for the subject and the topic. And I have been thoroughly enjoying my experience here today. So Sunday, that was yesterday, that was the 17th, I did quite a bit actually. I talked for 3 hours with a Dr. Elliot Gish. If you would like to learn more about Dr. Elliot Gish, he's actually started and he's working on developing a lucid dreaming nonprofit called Organization for Lucid Dream Studies. You can find him at luciddreamstudies.org. That's luciddreamstudies.org. I highly advise people check out Dr. Elliot Gish's website. He has actually a free online self-study course as a good resource. I talk to him a lot. I think in terms of ideas, he's a PhD. He actually researched this. I'm just someone who's learned from other people's personal experiences, but we clicked quite well on most of the things that we discussed. And basically, I feel like we understood each other really well, and we kind of have similar motives. He wants to teach lucid dreaming to as many people as possible, just like I do, and he wants to make it accessible. And in that vein, he actually has a research repository where he either provides links to or at least lists all known studies that have been done on lucid dreaming. So if you want to learn more about lucid dreaming research, Dr. Elliot Gish's website, luciddreamstudies.org, is the place to go. I talked to him for 3 hours yesterday about lucid dreaming, 11:30 to 12:30, and then 4:15 to 6:15 p.m. I also met Robert Wagner. I met him at 12:30. He was out there eating lunch. I just talked to him for a couple of minutes. And I met a variety of other people. I can't name all of them. I've met people who were, there were people I talked to while I was talking to other people that were just there and around. Let's see, who else did I meet? Oh, yes, I met a woman named Dash Burkehuss. She is from Chicago, and she is actually self-taught in a lot of fields, including lucid dreaming, I believe, as well. I think she learned on her own as well in lucid dreaming. And she taught herself to code and to program, and she's actually working on prototyping and developing a reliable two-way communication system from inside dreams, where you can communicate with the person inside dream, and they can communicate with the outside world, but not in the sense of just simple eye movements in a sleep lab, but in the sense of those eye movements being interpreted as Morse code signals then being interpreted as text, and that text being sent over the internet. In fact, her goal is to tweet from her dreams. She gave a presentation on that today, actually, in the Afternoon Lucid Dreaming Symposium, the second one at 4:15. Her talk was the second one in that list. There was Dr. Remy Mallett, then her, and then Clarita, I forget her last name, but unfortunately, but she was the third one. She's a PhD student. So her research is actually very interesting. And she also worked a little bit at Northwestern with, I believe, master's researcher. She's not a doctorate, but I think she has a master's, Karen Konkoly. And her research that she's presenting at the conference involves people with highly superior autobiographical memory. So it's not lucid dreaming related, but she does sleep research at Northwestern University. And I actually managed to talk with her and pick her brains a bit yesterday. And I think I ran into her today, but I met her yesterday and really talked to her after the reception yesterday evening. She was a delight to talk to and talked about memory and just my memory in general. And or specifically, we talked about lucid dreaming. And there's some really cool stuff that she's doing as well over there at Northwestern. And so there's some really cool stuff that's going on. And then that brings us into today. I met a lot of people today. Well, actually, I met Dr. Remington Mallett yesterday. Today, though, yesterday after the reception, he invited me to check out his presentation, his poster presentation that he had about talk he was going to give. And I went and talked to him today, and he talked about his survey of lucid dream reports versus non-lucid dream reports. And I'm trying to remember exactly what it was he was researching. I believe it had something to do with how much control maybe someone had. I know the methodology he used. He actually used dream views forums for his research. And for those of you who know me and who know, say, Sensei, who gave, and all those people came from dream views, guys, he's heard of at least one of you. I'm not sure which one he heard of, but I mentioned a couple of those names. I threw those out there, and he had heard of at least one of you. He's also, Dr. Remington Mallett is, I think, the only person at the conference who's actually familiar with our Discord servers. I told him about him. He's familiar with both Dream Cafe and OmniLucid. So there's an actual researcher familiar with us. Of course, just like any other researcher, though, he doesn't have the time of day to spend on Discord. So you'd never see him around, but he is familiar with us. So there's at least one person. I'm trying to remember what university he's at. I'll ask him again next time I run into him, because I will run into him again. He'll be around. And then there was Dr. Rachel Rader. I consider her research to be very common sense. She was researching if mild was more successful if you planned what you wanted to do in the lucid dream beforehand. And my response to that, just by reading that intro on the list for the schedule, was like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's common sense. And I told her as much when I actually met her. I said, that sounds like common sense. And she agreed. I consider, if you have a dream goal, that's kind of an integral part of the mild process, is actually, thinking about what you want to do, but like actually having something to think about. I consider that to be integral to the actual process. And so the two of us actually got on really well on that subject. I also met Dr. Michelle Carr, and she has done some interesting research. Now, her research dealt more with associative stuff. So people dreaming of, research for the conference dealt more with people dreaming of a sleep lab, being able to complete an assigned task more effectively, or to remember to do it more effectively if they dreamed about the sleep lab than if they didn't. And then we actually got talking more, and she also has done experiments, not for this conference, but she's done experiments relating to people who are hearing impaired, people who are deaf, and their experiences and dreams. We didn't get into a ton of detail on it, but she actually made some really interesting remarks. And as far as I'm aware, she's one of the only people who's actually researched dreams in anyone with sensory disabilities. So hats off to Dr. Michelle Carr. So there is a name to look out for. I believe she's somewhere, Rochester, New York. Was she the one that Rochester? Or was that Dr. Rachel Rader? One of them was at Rochester, New York. One of them was somewhere else. I don't remember where the other one was. So then there is, I think, Daniel Morse. He's worked with Dr. Ben Baird, and their research, I'm trying to remember what their specific research was. It involved, lucid dreaming induction. In fact, it involved experiments that were done initially. I think LaBerge and others did these experiments, and he actually found more success with auditory cues than visual ones, which I personally found rather interesting in terms of cueing. And I discussed with him about how sound can wake me up quickly. He said he's similar, and he actually used himself as the test subject in terms of calibrating the device for a certain volume level. But he actually got data that tended to indicate that auditory cues would allow someone to get lucid more readily than visual cues. Now, that's not the data that LaBerge got, so it was actually kind of interesting hearing that. And then, at least that's what I understand of it anyway. And then after lunch, I went to the hospitality suite after lunch, and I just happened to run into Dr. Kristen LaMarca. She was up there, and she worked with Dr. LaBerge at the Lucidity Institute. And so I actually got to sit with her and talk to her. And here's the best part. I had commented on something that she had done back in April. I don't remember the exact day. I just know it was like 7:51 p.m. U.S. Eastern time, so 4:51 Pacific. But I don't remember the exact date. But she had done a presentation on the Shift network, actually. And I decided to listen to it because I was subscribed to her email mailing list. And it was about lucid dreaming as a form of therapy for nightmares. And I was very intuitive. I actually liked listening to that. Well, we actually had a little discussion at the end of that on the text chat because the actual lecture is pre-recorded. So she's not actually speaking, but she's there answering text questions from people who are listening. I actually like that approach because it means the speaker can kind of put their attention in two different places. So, they have a lecture that's recorded, that's going, and then they can actually engage with the audience. So I think if you're doing something virtual, I actually kind of like that approach. It was pretty interesting. But we were discussing that, and I mentioned that I was going to be at the conference. She said she'd be here, and I told her to look out for the blind person because I'd probably be the only blind person here. And she actually remembered who I was. So I thought that was amazing. I have a lot of respect for that. So I'm just going to acknowledge that publicly, that I have a lot of respect that she actually remembered me. That's I usually wouldn't expect that from someone who's really busy. So I have respect for that. And then the coolest part of the day, I would say, a little bit later, the first symposium at 2:00 this afternoon, featured Dr. Stephen LaBerge and Dr. Martin Dressler. And Dr. Dressler is from Europe. I think he said originally Germany and moved to the Netherlands. And we actually got to talking for a bit as well. I think it's Netherlands. Yeah, I think it's the Netherlands. And we walked and talked a little, actually, I think before he went off to lunch, and then a little bit afterwards, after the whole thing went down, the second presentation. But they talked about different research. He actually talked about neurobiology, everything from brainwave studies that have been done. There were a whole bunch of different things that he discussed, to MRIs, fMRI, to EEGs. There's a lot of things I didn't understand completely. The gist of what I got is they were easily able to see like motor control that was done, and certain brain mapping things they were actually able to easy to see, but they could not see specifically, through brain waves, like if there are any specific brain waves that were associated with lucid dreaming, they couldn't actually see that. That's the gist of what I got from his talk, Dr. Dressler. And then Dr. LaBerge talked about lucid dreaming induction, and his was kind of more of an overview of his work. So he talked about lucid dreaming induction and, mild wake back to bed, and a few other things about lucid dreaming induction. So that's what Dr. LaBerge did. And then Dr. Ben Baird, who is the chair, he was talked kind of between them, and he talked about a paper that I think he worked with Dr. LaBerge and some others on, and he talked about the sort of like refuting some claims. So someone had claimed that like 40 hertz bandwidth, like the bandwidth was key to lucid dreaming, and what their research determined is that the first people who researched that had not properly accounted for eye movements and the electrical potentials that are created by eye movements, and the fact that lucid dreaming, something actually that got me interested, because they said that lucid dreamers' eyes move more than non-lucid dreamers. And I found that interesting because I've also heard that lucid dreamers' eyes move relative to things that happen in the dream, that things that they are looking at. And as a blind person, I don't use my eyes. So I would actually be very interested. And I told Dr. LaBerge this afterwards. I got a chance to talk to him. I'd be very interested in knowing, what do my eyes move in REM sleep if I'm lucid the same way or less than a sighted lucid dreamer? And I don't think that's ever been tested before, so I think that would actually be kind of cool to know. So I actually ended up with some questions of my own at the end of that. I'm also was curious about a few other things, but I had a lot of fun there. I actually presented, not really presented. I was asking a question, and I mentioned that Dr. LaBerge talks about rereading state tests as something that's reasonably reliable that you can do, as text is generally less consistent. But I was actually able to tell him that in 2020 I was actually able to do this with Braille in my 15th and 16th lucid dreams, and that was pretty fun. So that was my afternoon. I ended up having dinner with some people, and then attended the evening keynote. It wasn't lucid related, and now I'm back in my hotel room. So that's basically what I've done at the conference so far. If I really tried to describe it in more detail than that, we would be here all night. We've been here for a while already. I really like to thank anyone who's been watching, if anyone has been. And yeah, a few people have. Cappuccino. Thank you for watching. Don't know if anyone else is, but this has been more of a talk than a question answer. I'd like to thank you all for watching. Remember, if you are interested in future Skyfall Blind Dreamer content, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. If you would like to join a lucid dreaming community you are not part of one, please consider joining either OmniLucid or Dream Cafe Discord servers, links in the description below. Note, to join Discord servers, you must be 13 years of age or older by terms of service. I'd like to thank you all for watching. And it's one person, I guess, watching, but well, more people will see this eventually. But I'd like to thank you all, and I hope you all have a good day. Expect more updates from the conference as the week progresses. I may not do one every day, but I will be doing at least a couple more updates from the conference. Have a good night.